Kiran, for taking time. Um, let's, without much ado, let's start. Can you talk to us about your journey and to where you are today? What went into all these years?
Sure. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. So thanks for inviting me. I think I'm going to give a bit of my story. So it may sound a bit boring, but there's a point I'm trying to drive. So just be patient. So I grew up in Phuentsholing, Bhutan, speaking only Hindi and Nepali. Lived in a joint family, and we moved back to Bangalore. We not moved back, moved to Bangalore in early 80s. And it really felt like moving to a foreign country, although I was living in a foreign country, but it felt like it because I didn't speak the two popular languages, which is Kannada and English, and it was really hard. I often remember getting into arguments with the local vendors where they would slam me for not knowing Kannada, and I could only submit to them the national language. And then from there on, so I did my schooling, everything in Bangalore. And I also come from a very typical business Marwari family. So, the girls are expected to pretty much finish their studies and get married, or worst case, a best case scenario, you actually, join your dad's business for some time and then get married. So I followed the suit and I joined my dad's business, which was essentially a bubblegum and chewing gum manufacturing unit. And I essentially did some brand management for them. In the hindsight, I feel like the increased contribution to the dental bill that I contributed to, I think my marketing value add was very little. But anyway, so that was that. And, I think, so I did that. And of course, when I finished my graduation as well, my parents started to look out for a match for me. And my only criteria for my life partner was that A, he should be vegetarian. Second, he should be very well educated with, some bit of global exposure. And more importantly, wanted to live in India. And my family finally, they actually found this perfect match. It was probably the best bachelor that they could have ever found. And I remember my dad coming to me, his eyes all lit up, like, Kiran, we found a perfect match for you. The guy lives in Bangalore. He's got, he's studied abroad. He wants to manage his business in India. So everything was great on paper, right? And then so I met with this boy, and, we started getting to know each other. And that's when, we started talking about what I would do after I get married. And I said, very basically, I'm like, look, I used to help my dad. I would love to help you in your business. And he said something to me that changed my life. He basically told me, I will get you a computer at home. And now, given my background, I wasn't really expected to have a professional career. I could have very well been married. If he hadn't even said that, I probably would have been married to that guy because I didn't really have any plan. But that statement didn't go very well, and I think somewhere it hurt my self-respect. And so I told my parents, this is not going to work out. And they were very, very disappointed. And just to give a little bit background about my family, if my mom could have it, she would have all the four sisters married, not in Bangalore, but in RT Nagar, so close that she would see them every day. So for them, it was devastating that, we found a guy in Bangalore meeting all your checklist and you're saying no. So they advised me that why would you want to work and go to office every day and beat the Bangalore traffic? So clearly my choice was not very popular, and I saw very unhappy faces for several months after. Anyway, so fast forward, 2000, I met this guy who's my current husband. We shared common beliefs, and then we moved to the US in 2000. So again, a new territory, except this time far away from home. So a bit uncomfortable emotionally, but here I was, and by that time I knew that I wanted to work. But it was very challenging because A, I was in a foreign country. Second, I really didn't know anybody in that country. So I had no friends, nothing. And third, I had a degree from a university in India that was not well recognized. So I think finding my first job was difficult. So I knew I had to first start making some friends. So attend networking events, and I did all of that. And along the way came in a lot of sales role, customer relations role, and I was like, it just didn't excite me. So I wasn't in a rush to jump on something, but I knew, I'm just gonna wait around. In any case, so in one of those, Thai networking events, I met this friend who I had made friends with, and she introduced me to the managing partner of Redwood Venture Partners. And this is a Bay Area, VC firm that was focused on telecom. I didn't even know what telecom was back then. So anyway, so I met him, and it just sounded like, at that time, like Redwood was the hottest VC fund for the telecom sector. So I was like, okay, seems like something I should do here. So I joined as the assistant to the managing partner. And within 3 months, I was promoted to an analyst role. So then I started working with the portfolio companies. I crunched some numbers and all of that. And then 2003, so this was 2000, and then 2003, the whole telecom sector busted. All right, so and then 90% of the employees at the VC firm got laid off. So I knew I had to start looking for something. I was probably among the last 8. So I started looking, and at that time I contemplated maybe I should do my MBA. And my reasons were more like, I wanted to fit in. I'm in America, like, I don't watch soccer, and there were a lot of things. I had this notion, so I was like, maybe I'll go to a local school, it'll be good. In any case, I think around the same time, the CFO that I reported to at Redwood, he referred me to Google. He knew about a role that he thought, like, you will do an awesome job. Why don't you apply? So at that time, I was like, oh, maybe MBA. So I was still inclining towards MBA, but my peers told me, like, there's nothing you will learn in MBA that you won't learn at Google. So I was like, okay, so I'm joining Google. So rest is history. I joined Google, and I still remember calling my parents, especially my dad. I was like, Dad, I'm joining Google. And the first question he asked me was, so what do they manufacture? So I was like, okay, I'll come back and talk to you about this. So that was my journey at Google. But if I were to reflect back, I think a couple of things kind of, and again, these are the things I never thought about it back then, but now that when I reflect back, 2 things. One was, hold on to, like value your intuitions. Like there is self-respect. If anything comes in front of your self-respect, you want to actually, regardless of the consequences, you want to actually hold that. And I think that has definitely been, sort of a big sort of, impact for me. And second, I would say is, a lot of people, my family say, like, oh, Kiran, you got so lucky. You went to Google, you went to US, and then you found your first, and you got Google. And I was like, look, luck. Yes, you get luck, but then it also, I strongly believe luck actually happens to people that are constantly trying. And I think that I really worked hard. I think those are the 2 things: the one, working hard, and also optimism. I was just somehow I just thought that life is just beautiful. Like there's no reason to be actually sad because, if you really go deeper, there's a whole philosophical thing, but I always was just a very, very optimistic person. And so I think those were the 2 things I would say sort of brought me to where I am today. Sorry, that was a longish answer, but.
No, interesting. We would love to hear you more. So as you went through different stages of your career, did your approach and how you dealt with various stage change? And if there's any advice that you would give to your past self, is there anything?
Yeah, that's, so, when I joined Google, I was surrounded by these amazing, super smart people with all from, branded universities and colleges. So I think somewhere I felt overwhelmed. I was concerned with my ability to perform and deliver. And that approach has changed now. I think today I feel like once you are hired, you are at the same level as the rest of your colleagues. So I think that self-doubt has obviously gone long back, but I think that approach has changed. Second, I would say is, hardworking, like being a workaholic has been a big part of my, journey at Google, and it has served me well. But then I realized when I had my twins, I realized that I might not be able to work with that intensity. And so at that point, I even thought about quitting Google. And my mentors sort of guided me that, look, it's not black or white. It's not like professional life or personal life. You can actually manage the shades of gray. And so I stuck around also because I was given flexible hours to work. So Google made that all happen. So which was beautiful. So I stayed along and I didn't quit. And so took maybe a 4 or 5 months break and then I jumped right back. To your second question, what advice would I give myself? I think I would tell myself to hold the same work ethic, but I could have chilled out a bit. Google is a great place to work. Some amazing people, smart people, fun people. I should have had more fun, I would say.
Wow. So I hope we don't repeat the same mistake and we have fun irrespective of what we're doing, where we're doing it. And most of us really want to accomplish big goals. From your experience, is Is there any specific tips that you would like to share for those who want to accomplish big goals in life?
Not the well, I actually never had big goals. So, and I'll tell you, I never really approached life like that. And instead, my approach was to really give it everything I could at every step. So if I look at my life journey, I think at every step I wanted to, I wanted to look at my immediate goals and give it everything. So I think, and that approach has actually taken me to happy places. I've been very satisfied with the way life has brought me. So yeah, I mean, I think that's my answer.
Yeah, sure. And things change so rapidly. Like technology is changing. There are emerging technologies. The world is going digital. Is there anything specific that you do to keep up with the changing trends?
Look, that's a great question. I ask myself, and I don't know how it can be possible. But what I do know is that I'm a big fan of trying new technology. I love trying anything new that are launched, whether it's consumer apps or other such things. I'm always sort of trying, and sometimes it works, it doesn't, but I'm always enthusiastic about it, right? And even at Google, we are exposed to so many new features, tools, and technologies, and it's quite exciting. So I think, and I don't stress about it so much about keeping up because there's just so much that's happening. But this approach has worked for me.
And we've asked this question to a lot of people before. So keeping in mind the theme of this event, Lift as You Climb, could you share us your personal stories of somebody who's really impacted you within Google or outside?
Yeah, I would say it was my VP when I was working in the US, and I think she's impacted me in several ways. In fact, my learnings from her still is part of how I work things at Google. And some of the things are, of course, optimism is there, looking at solutions and not problems, looking at people's strength and not weaknesses. And I will tell you that changes everything for you. I have actually examples, which I won't go into lengthy examples, but where as soon as you focus on people's strength, somehow everything in your project or whatever actually turns out well, because I think with that comes empowerment. Like, for example, my VP, she trusted all of her team members. She had faith in them, and she also looked at their strength, and she would know exactly what to give what person, right? And I think that to me personally brought empowerment for me, because that's when you want to do even better and things like that. And this person also has actually, sort of also been very crucial at two parts in my journey with Google. When I was actually thinking of quitting Google, I think I talked about it a little bit earlier. One was when I had my twins, where I felt like I should take a break. And then second is when I wanted to move back to India. I always grew up in India. I never thought I would live outside of India. So for me, I wanted to get back. And I was like, if there's nothing, because think about 2007, there wasn't that much partnership work happening in India. And that was what my strength was. And so I told my VP that I wanted to move back. And being a visionary, she actually trusted, and she sent me to India. And for 2 months, I was actually working on US projects. But then that changed very quickly when we had the entire product team built in India. So then I was actually supporting like 9 or 10 products for that year, which was, I think, 2007. So things changed very quickly. So she was a true visionary, and she trusted me. And so I was actually the lead partnership behind several launches that happened in India. I don't know how many of you have used Transit, which is a feature of Google Maps. I did the key partnership behind that, and there was many other products because I was only partnership lead here, so I did get to work on a lot of cool products. But thanks to my VP who actually saw all of this and made it happen. So yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Kiran. I think we have time for some questions from the audience. Any show of hands if you have any question for Kiran?
Hi, I'm Gitanjali. Good evening to everybody in the room. My question to you is around, you had contemplated taking a break after your twins. I have been through that. I'm of course not a mother of twins, but I do have a daughter. And I had to take a break because of lack of support system. And I was paranoid about, putting my child in the hands of a total unknown person. Just to say daycare, creche. I was very paranoid about that whole concept. So how did you deal with that? Did you have a support system there?
My support system was my husband. And he's an incredible man. I think, and also, we were lucky that he had a very flexible, job where, he was a consultant, so he could do a lot of job remotely. So he was literally working from home, or even had taken even extended leave more than I did, and he helped me totally. So I could not thank him more for what he has done for the family. And also one other thing I'll say that, once you started working, like, I never hesitated throwing money with the help. So yes, you do need someone close, like your husband or your mother or someone to help you there. But once the kids grow up, like, don't stress about for small things. Like, get a cook if you need to, get a driver to drive you around, or get a nanny where, so long as there's someone to supervise. So I think one thing I would say for working mothers as you are progressing in your career, just say that that has worked well for me. So that's something that I would say, that don't stress, and there are bigger things for us to accomplish. If there's some things you can outsource, I would say do that. But yeah, to answer your question, I think my husband really supported me there.
Yeah, hi, Deepika here. There are a lot of students here, so I just want you to give them a tip, like once they enter the IT industry or any company, how they have to deal with just not looking into whatever the task assigned or whatever the work assigned. They look more into the other, which can interest them in doing something different out of their work. Like, they have to break down that barrier and move out and look for something, developing their new things by themselves or looking. So what tips can you give into that?
So you mean in terms of just opportunities, like within the same company, or
Yeah,
even
anywhere.
outside?
It's like they should not just look into the task assigned to them. It's like
I think she's talking about upskilling yourself even beyond work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you need to find, your interest areas, right? I think for me, given my role, I knew that I had to, I'm still not a great public speaker, but I knew that I had to improve my public speaking skills. So I actually took those lessons. I had interest in sort of supporting the social impact. So I would try to spend some time doing that. But I think in terms of upskilling, I think, Google, again, is a great place where they offer you a lot of self-development, courses. So I definitely, sort of took that path as well. But I think in general, even like, again, I'm speaking with Google because I have so much Google years. So, I think within Google, I have actually changed roles multiple times. So there was a third time I actually contemplated leaving, and I didn't leave, was after I finished 10 years at Google. That's when I thought, like, do I want to do this for the next 10 years? I had already done it for 10 years. And then I said, well, let's try if I could do something else. And then I did find those areas. And yeah, it's not comfortable when you move to a new role, when you have done something, but I think it keeps you challenged.
Hi, I'm Lakshmi. You said about moving to the US, and then you said about not being the soccer person and all. So there was a lot of cultural change that you would have seen when moved from India to US. And still in your life, you could gain the trust of those people. And sometimes what I feel is, when I just move from South India to North India, I find difficult to convince people. And I have worked with US counterparts, and I didn't do much great there. So is there anything from your lessons that you can share to on that perspective, embracing the cultural difference or anything?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it was a huge cultural change. Given, if you remember, I said I actually wanted to live in India. That was one of my criteria for the boys. So yeah, it was a huge change. I think there, you will find that you will make some friends that sort of touches your heartstrings, and they stay with you. So I think for me, I'm not a person that has like a big social group, and so I think I work well with very close-knit friendship. So I had made a very close-knit friendship with a few. So I think that kind of helped me sort of enjoy my other time. And I think beyond that, I just feel like when I landed in the US, I got into the workforce very quickly. And like I mentioned, I think it's, so when work takes so much of your life, there's actually little time to think about, like, hey, are you fitting in or not? I never thought I fitted in. To be honest, when I thought about MBA, I was actually thinking about sort of being able to connect with, students at the college where we can talk similar language. I mean, I love cricket, I love Bollywood. So coming there was very different, right? The conversations are very different. But, I think you find your way. Eventually, you do find your way. You make friends along the way that stick with you, and you find common things that you share. So it actually works out.
Thank you. I think I have one last question for you, Kiran. So if you had to share your insights on how should we coach ourselves to advocate for ourselves, if you could talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sujata led a wonderful session today, and I'm remarkable. I don't know if I can add anything more meaningful after that remarkable session. I actually attended a part of it. So, yeah, I mean, I think it is true. I mean, some of the things that she mentioned that, women tend to be very silent workers. We tend to be silent managers, because I think inherently we want to do a great job. And I think along the process, we don't advocate for ourselves. We don't speak about our accomplishments. And even worse, we don't talk about our team's accomplishments. And I think this is the biggest disservice you could do to yourself when you can work hard to accomplish those things in the first place, you should be unafraid to talk about it. So I think that, to me, sort of really sticks out.
Thank you so much, Kiran, for joining us. Can we have a huge round of applause for her?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.